Welcome, everybody. This is Cade Archibald with Go Wellness, and it is a beautiful day today, and we're excited to be on this webinar with you all. So today we have a very special treat for you, and we're going to be talking about nutrition and going over a lot of different things that you can do to optimize patients' nutrition, optimize your own personal nutrition, and uh, figure out ultimately how you can integrate that into being compensated for that advice as well. And that's something that obviously some of our clients are on this line, so that's something that you should already be doing, is getting paid for that advice. A lot of times, we give that free advice, which that's fine. It's a good service to the community, but there's better ways of doing that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our host, our man of the hour, Reagan Archibald.
Hey everybody, welcome. Good to have you guys here. Kate, did you share my screen so they can see it?
Yeah, everyone should be able to see your screen. Can I get a hand raise or something? All right, perfect. Yep, we got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Sherry.
All right, let's rock this thing. Okay, so first thing is when you're looking at nutrition, we have to get real practical with people. And you can see in the cartoon this is Jesus. Hopefully you guys have all read the Bible several times. If you haven't, get off this webinar and open that thing back up. But yeah, he's just turned he's got the fish that he made into hundreds of thousands of fish. He got loaves of bread that he made to feed the uh, um, the Hebrews, and they're saying, well, I can't eat that. I'm a vegan. Has that fish been tested for mercury? Is it gluten free? And so when we're diving into functional nutrition, let's try and make this real practical and not, don't be a condescending jerk when it comes to your nutritional preferences. I personally was orthorexic for a while. That means, I would feel bad if I didn't eat right. I would judge other people. I wouldn't, say anything out loud. But, getting over that was awesome. This was right before I went to Chinese medical school, and I was vegan, and I was probably the most unhealthy I've been in my entire life. So don't do that. Watch out for that in your patients too, because we don't want to create that. So let's talk about functional nutrition. At the very foundations of it, you got to look at nutrigenomics. And nutrigenomics is the epigenetics of food and nutrients. It's what we've been talking about for decades, that food is your medicine. And I guess more than decades, thousands of years. But if you look at nutrition, if you don't have the right nutritional components and the right nutritional foundation, all your efforts in functional medicine and acupuncture and chiropractic care, naturopathic care, it's all for naught. You're not going to build a foundation for future health. And what we're trying to do is we're creating a new genre in healthcare where we're really trying to get people to take action when it comes to their health and take health under their own control again. I think for far too long we've had big pharma influencing not only the doctors and not only nutritionists, dietitians, but they've also influenced the population to believe that nutrition has nothing to do with health. And I actually had one of my patients went to their doctor, and their doctor had the audacity to tell her that her nutrition had nothing to do with her diabetes. And I was like, wow, because he was frustrated that she would not get on the medication, and she wanted advice. And then she came in yesterday for a report of findings, and anyway, we're doing a program with her. But I'm always shocked at the amount of misinformation when it comes to nutrition. So when we're looking at this, look at the nutrigenomics, look at the epigenetics of food and nutrition. And what's going to happen is if you can get things down to the modular level, if you can figure out, for example, what type of B12 does your patient need? Does your patient need methylcobalamin, cyanocobalamin, adenosine cobalamin? Usually, hint, it's never cyanocobalamin. That can really mess up a person because about 70 to 80% of us have some type of MTHFR genetic defect, so you want to make sure you're getting the right nutrition in. So as we dig into this, make sure that you're focused, your whole programs need to be focused on looking at the underlying conditions, the root causes. Some of these root causes, they can be intestinal dysbiosis, they can be mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress, lifestyle-based diseases. Now, what are some of the lifestyle-based diseases you see? Kind of like my diabetic patient, her life was crazy. I mean, she didn't care. She ate anything, and she used food as kind of her emotional trigger. You know, anytime that she would get stressed, she'd use food. That was what would comfort her, and she didn't care what the food was. She was eating Pop-Tarts every day for breakfast because she liked it, and she was feeding her child
That
whatever
sounds like
she
a
wanted.
great breakfast.
That,
Yeah, that I said that sounds like a great breakfast.
you know, a little Pop-Tart is awesome. One of the best things that you can eat. Kate, try it. Um, but yeah, these lifestyle diseases, it's just where we get so stuck in this pattern. We think that we're invincible. We don't, you know, nutrition's not a big deal. And then it creates these lifestyle-based diseases. You get food allergies, more issues with detoxification, hormonal imbalances, environmental toxins build up. And then at the deepest root cause is going to be nutritional deficiencies. Now, a lot of people, we don't look at the way that herbs actually help satisfy a lot of those nutritional needs. If you look at China, many of the most famous herbal formulas were created in times of famine, and so that's when people were malnourished, and they realized that certain herbs would bring an energy back into that person, and they'd say, well, that person was spleen qi deficient. Now they're consuming these herbs that reverse the spleen qi deficiency. Maybe some of that, you know, a lot of it is obviously it's going to be energetic in the way that the herbs modulate the intestinal tract, the bacteria, and genetics. But the other piece of it are the nutritional factors found in herbs. There's a ton of nutrients in your herbs. Um, so yeah, these are definitely things to look at. Make sure that when you're looking at your labs, you're not just looking at the typical vitamin D marker, for example, because you know a lot of your patients they'll bring in blood work and typically they'll have a vitamin D tested and then also have vitamin B tests. And once again, you don't want it to be too high or you don't want it to be too low. So vitamin D on a blood lab, you want it to be between about 50 and 65, maybe up to 70. That's kind of the sweet spot there. One of the reasons we use the hair analysis because it gives you a much broader picture, broader length of time. It also gives you some good ideas of where to start nutritionally based on what their food sensitivities are. So um, inflammatory foods, there are foods that are actually going to destroy your body's ability to take in nutrients and cause more inflammation. And some of the major inflammatory foods, this is from Amy Meyer's book, The Autoimmune Solution, but some of the major ones are eggs, sugar, yeast, soy, corn, dairy, gluten. Kate, I think each one of these ingredients would be found in a Pop-Tart. So FYI, don't, maybe you ought to look at the ingredients, make your own Pop-Tart. You could do a bulletproof Pop-Tart.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a new
Uh,
business model. That's a whole new product coming soon. Bulletproof Pop Tarts
totally.
by Go Wellness. Oh,
Yes.
we got to call them something else than bulletproof. They
Yeah,
got that.
that's yeah, that might be an issue. We could call it paleo. I mean, we've got the paleo diet now is a big one, not in paleo. Paleolithic diet is where you trace back how our ancestors ate and the foods that they were primarily consuming, and the things that they did not have adequate access to were things that were super sweet. I mean, they had fruits in certain times, but their fruits, once again, are not nearly as fructose laden as our fruits are. They had access to wild meats, wild game. Obviously, everything was wild 10,000 years ago, and then agricultural came in. They got, you know, in my opinion, they got smarter, and they invented technology called fences, and then they started, you know, having some agriculture where they didn't have to go hunt every day. They could do more things that were meaningful to them, like write things down, and that's where they started writing very interesting things, vegetables, root vegetables, different times of the season, different times of the year, nuts, seeds. A lot of people in the paleo community are very big into coconut and olive oil. These are things that our ancestors were eating. Um, there were not Cheerios, not Coke, not hot dogs, as far as I know. Um, no Lay's potato chips, nothing packaged. They didn't have extracted seed oils. They didn't consume a whole lot of dairy. I mean, there's if you look back, once the agricultural industry happened, that's when dairy started to be consumed. And in fact, during the plague, the Black Death in Europe, where a third of the population was just wiped out from the face of the earth. Interestingly enough, the ones who survived were typically the ones who were milking their own cows because, some of the argument is that not only are there spores and bacteria that come from the cow milk that's not pasteurized, and that can inoculate and create better immunity, but also you have the ionized vitamin C that is non-existent in pasteurized milk. So if you're going to do dairy, try and do it raw. Make sure at least it's organic. We would dairy stick to butter. That's your major source, and we'll go through some of these things. You want to look at calories in, calories out if you're doing weight loss. No, I'm joking. Don't look at calories in, calories out. That drives madness in people because we have patients who they stick to this like 1,100 calorie per day diet, and of course they lose weight over the first month to 60 days, and then their energy starts tanking, and then their thyroid slows down, and then they think, oh man, I'm on a plateau, I need to do less calories, and so they cut their calories again, and what happens is they end up with some type of stress response. They get autoimmunity. They end up with Hashimoto's because their body can't function on 500-600 calories a day, even if they are on, doing hormones or getting on certain types of weight loss protocols. Doing the raspberry ketones. Those
Reagan,
have to look
I
at.
had a.
Go ahead.
Did I tell you about my ROF the other day?
No, no.
I had a patient, so she used to do like Ironmans, triathlons, super like athletic. She actually works out of the Biggest Loser Ranch. Awesome gal. She was so cool. But yeah, she over the last 3 years, it was just like all at once it hit her, and she couldn't even run like a half a mile without extreme exhaustion. And because she had been doing like she'd been cutting calories to like always stay a specific weight, and she'd just been focused on that, and then she'd do this high intensity exercise, and she just is completely like her adrenals are just flatlined.
Wow,
Yeah, so
man.
that's what you got to warn your patients on that calories in, calories out stuff. Because once they go
Yeah,
through that, it's so hard to get them to the other side.
well, especially when you look at fat. I mean, in a fat molecule, 1 gram of fat, you've got 9 calories, whereas 1 gram of protein or carbohydrate, you've got four. And so people freak out when you're like, hey, I want you to start eating more fat. And they're like, wait, what about the calories? And they'll lose it for a second. So yeah, I mean, yep, great point there. All right, so you want to make sure your foundation is going to be lots and lots of healthy vegetables. This is going to be huge. I was at the conference I did in Boulder, Cade, the 212. I talked to a lot of guys there, but I met a guy who runs FitCon, and FitCon is it's a fitness challenge. They do like weightlifting competitions at it. They do CrossFit, but then they have it open for just typical people, and it's a huge event. It's actually it was at the Sandy Expo Center.
Oh,
He's from
cool.
Lehigh, and his name's Craig Pressoff, and fitcon.com for all of you who want to check it out. But it's a big event. We're going to be involved in it next April, and the whole premise around his work. I mean, he's like this ripped bodybuilder guy, but eating more fats and ketosis. I mean, Tim Ferriss, that's what Tim Ferriss has been experimenting with. Tim Ferriss likes to do 2-week experiments, and then he does 6-month-long trial periods. You know, if he likes an experiment for 2 weeks, then he'll do it for 6 months, and then he'll write about his outcomes. And that's, you know, right now he's staying in a pretty steady state of ketosis, minus the drinking the night before the conference. So, which you know, Tim Ferriss is an awesome guy, really cool energy. But Craig Pressoff, a Utah local, Utah native, he's just ripped, and that's what he trains people on. He gets people eating more fats, 60 to 70% of their calories from fats every day. And these people, they start getting shredded, and their brain turns on. They get more clarity. They get more focus. And this is no different than what has happened with Dave Asprey and Bulletproof, and that's why I got into the Bulletproof diet about 4 years ago, because I saw how much better I felt. Energy was more sustained, less sugar drops. So when you're talking to your patients, you know, give them some incentive, because there's a lot going on in this arena. And if you do stay in a state of ketosis, once again, watch out for your thyroid. Your thyroid is very susceptible, is very fragile. It's the canary in the coal mine. And so if you go on a ketosis diet, you're doing lots of organ meats, you know, at least once a day or once a week. You can do it once a day too, but if you're doing it once a week, you want to take some support for your thyroid, either a thyroid glandular extract, or, you know, get on some, you know, ashwagandha, holy basil, something to help support the thyroid function. Okay, so what fats are great for us? What do we want our patients eating more? Well, butter is one of those things that, have you seen this, Cade? When you tell your patients they can eat butter, they first look at you in shock, like, I can't believe you're trying to kill me. I thought you were a health clinic. And then, and then they're like, wow, so I really can eat butter. And that's, you know, what have you seen people say about this?
Yeah, usually they just say butter. What? Yeah, it's awesome once they actually see it and like a light bulb comes on, and then they actually go try some things and they're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, butter, you know, kicks ass. I mean, Ansel Keys and the whole Dwight Eisenhower, that's where it started when he had his heart attack when he was president of the United States. Um, you know, he was restricted. He had to eat dry toast for his entire presidency, and he ended up with Crohn's disease. He went from having a heart attack to having the worst health of his life. I mean, chronic autoimmune conditions, because he was on this dry toast diet, no fats, no saturated fats. And then his researchers went, and the big agricultural industry, that's when they really started dominating, because the government started subsidizing crops like wheat and corn and soy and all these crops that had no fat. And so fat has been evil. I mean, that's how we grew up. I mean, your mom is still, like, it took us, how many years? It took us about 3 years just to get mom to finally, like, eat some fat and not feel guilty about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and put away the margarine.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, look, that smart butter or whatever it's called is not smart. Yeah, and she loves it now. She feels better. So butyrate. So what's good about butter is, and butyric acid. That's the big thing. Butter is anti-inflammatory. Butter is protecting illness. It increases energy expenditure. It reduces the negative effects of type 1 diabetes, decreases intestinal permeability. So if you've got leaky gut, this is what you want to be eating. And one of the big things that your bacteria feed on are what are called butyric acid. And these are short chain fatty acids, and a massive amount is actually found in butter. So get your patients to dig into this. The amount of fats in butter is massive, and then if it's organic grass-fed butter, not found as much in grain-fed cattle, or cows, I should say, but in the grass-fed cattle, it's huge, because you're going to get massive amounts of vitamin K. So get your patients on some butter. They're going to love it. As far as alcohol goes, there are some alcohols that are going to be safer than others. This is not big part of our program is promoting alcohol consumption, but as you can see
Well,
here,
just a couple times a day, right?
we recommend don't drink before noon. I mean, we got to draw the line somewhere.
Oh, all right. Thanks.
Yep, just want to clarify. Um, no, vodka and gin, those are some of the more safe alcohols to consume. Then tequila, you got whiskey, other unsweetened spirits, and then unfortunately beer and red wine. Red wine has done a lot of promotion about the health benefits, but as far as the amount of ochratoxin A that you're going to get in the red wine, you got to be careful because if you've got any kind of yeast overgrowth, your body's going to love this red wine, and it can be pretty toxic. If you've got your yeast cleaned up, your guts cleaned up, go for it. If you do happen to consume alcohol, make sure you're hydrating yourself, and then I like to take some activated charcoal and glutathione to counteract some of the negative side effects with that. Bulletproof diet, we're going to talk about some things. Bulletproof diet, we like to use the infographic. It's one of the simplest things you can use with your patients. And you can find this infographic right here. You can get it on their website. Just go to bulletproof.com or do bulletproof/infographic. And Dave Asprey, he loves it because he can promote his products on it. You have to look past that a little bit, but you can see he's got things very dialed in so that it's just a single sheet. We have our patients hang it on the door on their cabinets so that they always know, like, okay, we're staying in the green. As you can go down the list, you can see that things get more toxic. So you want to be making sure you're consuming the right types of proteins, the right types of starch, the right types of fruit. You're cooking things the proper way. You've got the right oils, the right vegetables. If you're consuming coffee, you want to make sure that you're being cautious in what types of coffee you're consuming. And what you'll find is that your patients, if you do just a simple metabolic assessment and then you do a simple blood panel, you'll see that their body is going to improve dramatically when you get them on a diet like this. C-reactive protein will go down, homocysteine will go down, their hemoglobin A1C will go down. It's good for the kidneys, good for the liver. All these things can be very powerful if you can get them on a better diet regimen. Now, we're not 100% bulletproof. We don't advocate that. We don't advocate 100% anything because you've got to base nutrition on how a person's body's functioning. If a person's got very healthy adrenal glands, their thyroid may be struggling more, they're going to want to eat more carbohydrates. And so that's where you really have to get them over this idea that they can survive on more of a paleo type diet, because what's missing in modern day diets, we got big into fats, and we've said carbohydrates are bad now, but we have to start bringing some of those carbohydrates back. And I know myself, if I don't eat enough carbohydrates, I went ketosis for about, I tested myself every day for about 6 weeks, and I was in it the majority of the time, but what I found over time is my thyroid started to get lower, and my performance started to drop as far as mental function goes. I got cold hands, cold feet, and I thought, man, I got to do something different. And so I started supplementing with thytropin, a standard process protomorphogen, thyroid gland, and with the thyroxine removed, no hormones in it. And then I started feeling a little better, and then I started actually adding in more carbs at night. And then I felt, ever since I made that slight modification, I felt a lot better because it's easy to just do vegetables and some type of protein and then put a lot of fats on those. So watch what your patients are doing. So, Kate, what are some of the carbohydrates you like to eat?
Um, like, let's see, what's some of my favorites? I would say, would you consider sauerkraut kind of
It's
there's
more
some,
of a vegetable.
yeah. Um, Favorite carbs. I don't know, like a sweet potato. Like sweet potatoes. Um, some Cut me off guard there.
No worries. Yeah, sweet potatoes are great. I love rice. I love plantains. Plantains rock. Rutabaga is really good. Parsnips are great. Carrots are a good source of carbohydrates. I've even like sourdough bread is one of my favorites. Now a lot of people
I
it's
was scared to say that one. I didn't know if I'd get shunned by you.
come on, come on. Yes, it's awesome. Sourdough bread is the fermentation process actually eats up a lot of the gluten. Now, if you have, if you've got a gluten intolerance, which I've had almost every time I test. The last couple tests I've done, I've not had gluten show up, and so I give myself access to a little gluten. Sourdough bread a couple times a week has been awesome. And so yeah, it's the fermentation that actually consumes a lot of the gluten. So have at it. Let's talk about dairy. Dairy, you can see what to eat. The best is going to be your grass-fed ghee, the clarified butter. Um, you can have non-organic ghee, that helps. But grass-fed, full-fat, raw organic milk, cream, yogurt, not pasteurized, those are great. Get your butter in. That's on the positive side of dairy. Things you want to avoid are like the dairy from factory farms or farms using growth hormone. You want to avoid skim milk, low-fat milk products, cheese with mold, blue cheese, etc., which I love, but don't eat them very often. Powdered milk, condensed milk, ice cream. So some of those very good Thai drinks, you want to avoid those in the dairy. Um, as far as cooking goes, raw or not cooked, that's ideal unless you're eating cruciferous vegetables, even like your spinach with the oxalates in it. You have to be very, very careful about this. We've had patients who've given themselves full-blown kidney stones because of the high level of oxalates they've been consuming. They wake up every day and they do this spinach smoothie, and it's unfortunate, but they end up causing a lot of imbalances in their body from eating a pound of spinach every morning that's not cooked. So the second
Hey,
way you want to go ahead.
oh, we just had a question on what your take is on taking exogenous ketones.
Yeah, I mean, exogenous ketones, they're expensive. But man, talk about a great way of getting some ketosis going. And it's a great way if you're just starting to put yourself in ketosis and you love that state, then get some exogenous ketones. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Just support your thyroid for sure. Great question. And I like using like brain octane is you can that's a medium chain triglyceride. Not nearly as potent as taking ketones themselves, the ketone supplements, but even that is great. I think in the future we're going to have to be careful. Otherwise, some of these ketones are actually going to be regulated by the FDA because they are so potent. But try them out. Yeah, very good. Okay, great question. Keep them coming. Eat baked at 350 or below. Don't turn your oven up too high. Cook your meats very slow, lightly charred, lightly grilled, not charred. It's the black stuff on the meat that has the carcinogenic factors. You want to make sure it's broiled or barbecued. That's, we're getting back into the kind of the gray area. Barbecuing, unfortunately, most of the sauces they put on have a lot of sugar, a lot of MSG, salts that you don't want. And then avoid like the charred or blackened or burnt, and then deep fried is fine, and microwave is awesome. No, I'm joking. Those are all also ways you do not want to cook them. Um, things to eat: grass-fed beef and lamb. Cade's Farmers Market in St. George has the best. You got the duck eggs down there. Is that thing open yet, Cade?
Yeah, they're I haven't made it out there that often this summer, but yeah, they got some awesome stuff. They got duck eggs, a lot of pasture raised meats, and yeah, just some really good stuff. A lot of good produce too. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah. Your
can find a
farmers
good
market's good.
local farmers market, that's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, get some duck eggs. I'll be down there next week, so Um, let's eat duck eggs. They're the best. Whey protein is actually one of the safest. It's the casein that most people react to in dairies, so get rid of that. Collagen, colostrum. This is why we use NanoPro as one of our favorite proteins in our clinic. NanoPro is colostrum and whey protein. Very safe, lots of inositol in it. Selenium levels are very high. It's hypoallergenic. If your patients can't tolerate any whey at all, then get them on the collagen protein. And collagen protein is what we use after stem cell therapy. We recommend that for their ligaments, their joints. The collagen is going to help with skin. It also helps repair the intestinal lining for intestinal permeability. Collagen substrates are everywhere in your body. Your organs need it, obviously your tendons, your ligaments. So that's some good sources of protein. The low mercury fish, your anchovies, haddock, sole, sardines, sockeye salmon.
We got
Go
another
ahead.
question from Sherry. She asked, "Won't they potentially cause excess estrogen?" It, what is that? What is that in referring to? Oh, here she goes. Oh, protein supplements.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's you have to look at excess estrogens are typically going to be caused if you're eating a protein source that has any type of growth hormones in it or antibiotics. And then it's also you're going to cause excess estrogen when you have too many toxins in the body. So the phthalates, the chemicals you're getting from the GMOs, that's what's going to block the estrogen receptor sites for actually uptaking estrogen, and that can be one of the causes of excess estrogen. The other thing that can cause it, though, and like you bring up, Sherry, is a good point, is if people are taking protein powders for like every meal, or you see those weight loss diets where it's like, here's your food for the week, and it's all these protein powders. Our bodies can't tolerate more than about 30 grams of protein, and in a powder form, that gets converted into sugar versus being utilized as a protein source much quicker, especially if your kidneys can't handle it, or if you don't have the right hydrochloric acid in your stomach. And then what happens is that dysregulates insulin, and insulin and estrogen have a nice relationship where if insulin is not taking sugar into the cells, insulin gets too high in the body, cortisol creeps in, cortisol sees that there's a stress, and then what happens is once again estrogen loses the cell's receptor sites lose their receptivity to estrogen, and then estrogen goes into a fat cell, so or it becomes dominant in the blood. So great point. I appreciate you bringing that up. Anything you'd like to add on that, Sherry? Um, Type it in. Some of the proteins, pastured pork. This is where we're still in the green, getting lower. Pastured duck and goose. Whey protein isolate. That the proteins must be cold pressed. Protein isolates can be suspect. High mercury farm seafood, unfortunately those are becoming very common. Soy protein, wheat protein, beans, cheese, and other pastured or cooked dairy except butter. All these things are big issues. If you look at sweeteners and sugars, stevia, xylitol, those are fine. I don't like either of those very much. Maltitol and other sugar alcohols, dextrose, raw honey, which I love, sorbitol. Now we're getting into kind of the gray area, maple syrup and coconut sugar. I know when I've seen a lot of my patients like, I'm doing lots of maple syrup, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's still sugar, even though it's raw. It's the grade A maple syrup. It tastes great, but not necessarily great for you. The cooked honey, the brown sugar, of course, white sugar, and then you get into agave syrup. I remember I was recommending agave about 12 years ago to my patients. I'm like, yeah, this is a, and then I realized, wow, it's just as refined as sugar is, if not more so, and it actually has worse effects on blood glucose. So, yeah, you got to watch out for these new fads. High fructose corn syrup, do that in high quantities if you want diabetes. Fruit juice concentrate, yeah, fruit juice is rough. If you read the book Gut by Julia Enders, it's pretty funny, but her big thing in that is limit your amount of fructose to less than 25 grams a day. We've got a sugar addiction, and this sugar is causing is the single biggest culprit for dysbiosis in our guts. We have more yeast, we've got more issues than we've ever had before because of the amount of sugar. aspartame, NutraSweet, sucralose, Splenda. You guys know all these things are not good for you.
Hey Reagan,
Talking about
Sherry just had a couple other comments. I wanted to add this in. Do you see her comments on the chat box there, the question box? So she
no.
has a lot of some folks that go to the gym that end up, or some girls that go to the gym getting like more pecs and she. I'm gonna quote you on this, Mary. They end up with man titties that are resistant to laying, and they're really resistant to laying off powders. Sorry, I thought that was hilarious. But
Wow, man titties. I've heard of moobs that men get or boobs if they're sweaty. Um, but that's awesome.
yeah, that's great. And then they defend them saying they're plant-based. And that actually brought up a good point for the plant-based proteins. Sometimes those can be more inflammatory than anything else, right?
Exactly.
Depending on.
Well, yeah, the soy protein isolates is what most people are doing, or the pea protein, and they're thinking, it's plant medicine, and there's a big vegan, the Vega line, and he's an Iron Man, and he does all vegan-based products. But even so, a lot of us, if we have any type of leaky gut, intestinal permeability, it's just like from the Neijing Su Wen when they talk about the tree that looks very healthy and very robust, but then a strong wind comes and that tree falls over and you see in the middle it's hollow. There's no core to it. And that's what I find with a lot of our athletes is they are just pushing themselves, but they're actually very unhealthy on the inside, even though they look ripped on the outside. You run their labs or you dive into their conditions, and a lot of them have very severe digestive issues. They're very inflamed. They're just pure willpower is pushing them through, and then when they hit the fence, they hit the bottom in their 40s or sometimes even earlier in their 20s. That wheels come off the bus, and they have a rough time recovering. So, yeah, it's a great point. Even I always say, look, I don't know, but most people they have too high levels of inflammation if you're eating that much protein, and if your GFR is off at all from your kidneys, then we know that your body's consuming far too much. So what I'd recommend is check their labs and go on lab values because some athletes it's impossible to get them to make that change. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks for the man titties. That's awesome.
And then
All right.
Dr. Antori mentioned looking at hydrolyzed collagen peptides treated with enzymes. Um,
Yeah. Now, now those can be great. I would just look at the source of where it comes from, but that's going to be it's going to be a full amino acid chain. You're going to be able to absorb that easier. So your patients with digestive issues, Dr. Antori, I think it would be a really good fit for them. Okay, cool. So great questions. Thanks, guys. Veggies and fruits. Let's talk about these. Some of the favorites are avocado, cilantro, olives, parsleys, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, collard, cooked spinach, kale, and make sure you're cooking like your Brussels sprouts, your kale. If you don't believe me, eat a bunch of them raw and see how much gas you end up with and how bad it makes your stomach hurt on the Brussels specifically. Asparagus has more protein than any other vegetable. Your broccoli, carrot, celery, cucumber, dark lettuce, the fennel, radish. Fennel is great for digestive issues and intestinal permeability, but some people can get a reaction to fennel, so have them start slow. A reaction, I mean, they'll get diarrhea. It's almost like quick. Some of the best sugars in fruit, the lowest sugar fruits are blackberries, cranberries, grapefruit, lemon, lime, passion fruit, raspberry, strawberries, artichokes, green beans, summer squashes, zucchini. You get into some suspect areas with eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, garlic, onions. Garlic and onions use them medicinally. I mean, onions they will suck in any types of toxins around you. So that's why, if you feel like there's people who have there's viruses around you or your partner's sick, you can cut up an onion and put it next to your bed, and that's a great little Chinese medicine secret to not getting that virus into your own body. It keeps your immune system strong. Garlic, same way. Garlic is great if you've got parasites, if you've got certain bacterial overgrowth. Garlic can help with that. It's also an immune tonic, so use some garlic. Um, Things you want to avoid are like obviously the canned fruits, canned vegetables. Some of the tomatoes and mushrooms are a little more suspect. Bananas, dates, grapes, guava, figs, lychee, mangoes, everything, unless you're in Hawaii, then these things you want to avoid. If you're in Hawaii, they taste so good, it's worth the extra sugar, I promise. Just run it off. um, Plums, pineapples, pears, peaches. Pineapples are great as far as looking at the amount of enzymes. The bromelase is huge in there. Beets, corn, peas, plantains. These are all a little more in the suspect, kind of in the gray area. Winter squashes, yams. Once again, these are for veggies and fruits. Those are very good starches. Um, all right, spices. Some of the best thing: apple cider vinegar, sea salt. We have salts, these cool Hawaii salts in our clinics now. Those are amazing. Apple cider vinegar is always good for patients with joint issues, issues with acid reflux. Make sure you're adding ginger to your smoothies, more cilantro, more parsley. That's going to help pull out heavy metals. Get your oregano, the turmeric, the rosemary, lavender, thyme. Those are all beautiful. We've been making lavender tea. We have these lavender plants outside of our house that are just popping right now. Cinnamon's awesome for regulating blood sugar. Allspice, cloves for any type of pain. Um, and then you can get into the ones to avoid, your commercial salad dressings, the soy sauce, the miso. Skip the soy sauce with your sushi. One of the worst things you can do. It used to keep me up at night. I'd say I love sushi, but I can't eat it because I can't sleep at night. And then I realized, like soy, you've got massive amounts in the soy sauce of gluten, and typically MSG is loaded up in there, and the amount of ochratoxin and fungus that grows in there is huge too. So get rid of those. Watch out for the yeast, the flavoring, natural flavors, MSG. Those are all some dangerous things. All right, so I think we covered a pretty good swath of foods because the more that you eat foods that fit your biochemistry, the better your gut's going to be, the more disease you're going to prevent, the more the healthier your gut is, the less inflammation, less obesity and metabolic disorders. So cool. Really appreciate everyone being on this. I think we covered some awesome some awesome content, and I can't wait to hear your success stories with your patients who are eating better. So we'll take some final questions, then we'll close up the seminar.
I think what we'd like to do, if you're interested in any of our programs or anything that we do, we have some clients on the line, so hopefully you're learning and eating up this content, but it's also we want to give anyone that is looking for additional help with implementing functional medicine or implementing different types of acupuncture. Reach out to us. We'll have some links later on where you can actually sign up for some events and some things. So yeah, we really appreciate you guys being on, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Cool. Thanks everybody. Go to gowellness.com and we'll get you connected.